America. I'm Laura Packy, and this is Arizona Today. I'm really excited about my guest. I say that each time, don't I? Well, that's because they usually pay me $1.25 to say something like that. I haven't gotten that yet from this gentleman, but you're about to meet the president of the Arizona State Senate. I'm very excited about Senator Petersen coming on the show and discussing openly what's taking place in Arizona legislatively, economically, and in other matters. Senator Petersen went into the legislature in 2012. I met him as a member of the House of Representatives, and he served there most successfully in multiple capacities. I believe ending as majority leader. Is that correct, Senator?
Right.
Okay. And then he also served on judiciary. He became an attorney and moved over into the Senate, again, moved into as majority leader, and then became president of the Arizona State Senate, which he is today. And so I'm very excited that the president of the Senate has taken time out to spend time with us to discuss a number of issues that even if you're in North Carolina or Vermont, you might find this interesting because Arizona is the center of a lot of attention across the nation. And I don't think I'm making that up. So my guest is Senator Warren Petersen. And Senator, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Great to be with you.
Well, I'm really glad that you are. I've been fortunate to have met you years ago and bounce around with you a little bit in various matters, but I did not know a couple of things that I'm going to read right now, ladies and gentlemen. I did not know this. Now I may have this wrong, Senator, so correct me. Everybody else does on my show, but I don't know if he authored this legislation, but he was a key component in a couple of pieces of legislation that I did not know about, and I want to read them. You banned sex changes on minors.
I was the author of that. Prime sponsor.
Let's follow up with that one. You also eliminated a state agency. Now that's interesting because, ladies and gentlemen, we know how DOJ is going about eliminating things. Here's a gentleman who did it and probably did not get the fanfare, that's in quotes, that Elon Musk and others are getting. And yet he's cutting back on bureaucracy and expenses to save the taxpayer money. I did not know that either, Senator, so that was new to me. And then also, I want to talk about what you've been doing most effectively to help ICE and our border. So if you're all right, first of all, how about the banning of sex changes in minors? I did not know you authored that.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Interestingly, the media recognized it as one of the most difficult bills of the session to pass.
And believe that.
But when I was working on it, I didn't think it would get so much opposition. It's such common sense. But of course, we had a huge group of people. The hearing took hours and hours. Of course, they brought in all these teenage kids that were, wanting to do sex changes. And why do you hate me? And that was kind of the narrative. I'd get calls from CNN or whoever. And the media headlines were always, Warren Petersen's hateful bill is advancing. That was really, really the way they were pushing it. And we just had a few people, supporting it. And this was, a few years ago. We were a little ahead of our time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were, in fact, the first time we couldn't get it out of committee. We couldn't of course, all the Democrats were no. And we couldn't get enough Republican votes even. But we did finally get it passed. Put it on Governor Ducey's desk. Thank goodness, Governor Ducey was still in. He signed it into law, and it is illegal for people to do sex changes on minors in Arizona. And, it's horrendous. It is horrible to think that parents are performing sex changes on minors and later on. And we're starting to see this now. These kids are growing up, and they're really upset because now they can't have children. Their sexual organs have been permanently damaged. And so that is a right. It's amazing to me that it's even constitutional. The courts haven't found it unconstitutional. Your body is your body, and nobody should be able to perform, that type of a surgery on your body like that, an irreversible surgery, you need to be an adult. You need to make that decision. Now,
Yep.
if you're an adult, you want to perform all sorts of surgeries on your bodies, that's fine. Now, of course, the left will try to, conflate this with abortion. Of course, we know in abortion, there's two bodies. We're talking about somebody else's, that's also somebody else's body who has a right. And so it really is the same principle and the same argument as that. And we're on the right side of this issue. It's one of those 70-30 issues where, but of course, the media was heavily opposed. And we had, far lefties heavily opposed to it.
Thank you. I really did not know this, and a lot of people think that I'm really up on stuff, and so when I saw this, I went, I did not know you authored that, championed it, and moved it forward. So thank you
You're
for
welcome.
doing so. And you're right, you are well ahead of the curve, which is now common discussion, it seems. So you were several years ago. You've been a champion of religious rights, individual rights, freedoms. If I may, correct me though, protecting the constitutional rights of the individual. You've been a champion of that for as long as you've been in the legislature.
Yeah, it's really what motivated me to run. It's what keeps me here, or has kept me here, at least to this. It's what's kept me here for 13 years.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of government, the Declaration of Independence is beautiful, says it perfectly that the governments are instituted to protect our God-given rights. These are individual rights, which include life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, of course, property rights. The founders originally had property in there. So that's and those are always on assault whenever government is at work or acting, or there's a legislative function. There's somebody always trying to take the citizens' property rights, their liberty, their freedom, and so you need people who understand how to defend those things. And I feel like I have an ability to be able to see those principles and how to defend them, and I've always had a knack for that, and so I enjoy being able to do that.
Let me, so we don't run out of time, and hopefully you'll come back and we can enlarge on this. But there's a couple of issues here. If you don't mind, let me just serve them up and get a quick response from you, and we'll move on. And ladies and gentlemen, by all means, if I've gone too fast and you would like the senator to enlarge on his answer, send me an email. You've got my email address. We'll post it again. But I just thought really quickly, you would like to hear from the senator, the president of the Senate, on a couple of these issues that he has championed. For instance, Senator, free markets. You've been a strong proponent of free markets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, always. I'm always looking at angles to cut red tape. I was the prime sponsor of the universal licensing bill, which essentially said if you have a license in another state and you come to Arizona, you are immediately approved to use your license here. I've had many people from many professions who really appreciated how they could just come to Arizona and immediately start working. They didn't have to wait for a really long process or completely have to start over on the licensing process. So it's kind of a reciprocity, but really just one way. You can, and it's good for Arizona because, it brings people here, supports the economy. And then really just anything that has to do with any kind of regulations on businesses, always supportive of those things.
Well, it's almost like you're reading off my notes because you've been a champion of small business. So that fits right along with free markets.
Yeah, and FIB has recognized me a couple times as the top legislator to protect small businesses. So they produce most of our jobs. They don't get the attention because they don't have the money to hire high-powered lobbyists. So I always take it upon me. It's my responsibility. I'm the lobbyists for the small businesses because they can't afford to pay for lobbyists. The big businesses have lobbyists all over the Capitol, but it's really the small businesses that we need to always have in the back of our mind. We're remembering them and protecting them.
Again, you've been known as a fiscal conservative, and that's not just some political rhetoric. you can back that statement up by your actions. And let me give an example, ladies and gentlemen. The elimination of a state agency.
Yeah. Yeah, we were able to there was we actually eliminated the Department of Weights and Measures. It was its own huge, massive department. We just took out kind of like what you've seen with the president's efforts with the Department of Education. He's trying to just take the critical components, put them into another department, and cut the waste. We did that with Weights and Measures. We folded the critical portions, to make sure the customers aren't getting defrauded, and whether it's at the gas station or grocery stores, we folded that into the Department of Agriculture. We took out the waste and closed down the bureaucracy. So we shrunk government and saved the taxpayers money.
Now, along those lines, President Trump is reducing federal government, and where he can, he's removing federal agencies, departments, and sending them back to the states, from which our founders really wanted state sovereignty and not everything centralized in the federal government. So, in your opinion, is Arizona prepared to deal with the closure of the Department of Education, sending it back to Arizona, and most likely some other departments federally, and resending that back to the states?
100%. That's where it belongs. It's really easy actually to be a congressman. I don't know that I'll ever run for Congress, but if I did, it would be a pretty simple message. There's really only two things a congressman needs to do: balance the budget, which they haven't done in 40 years, and send everything back to the states, which they're not. They're doing the opposite. But that's really all you got to do as a congressman, is balance the budget, send everything back to the states. Anyone that's gone to law school, that really the federal government has very limited power. The reason why they're so busy and so active in our lives is they tie funding to everything that they mandate. And so what we do is the states take the funding, and then we say, okay, we'll do the mandates. And that's really where the problem lies. It's it's exciting to see President Trump getting rid of a lot of that, because all you do when we all send our money to Washington, D.C., it goes through the grinder, it comes back, with less buying power, if you will. It's so much better to keep the money in the states. You're running it through the states. I mean, you look at Arizona's tax rate versus the federal government's tax rate. Our income tax is 2.5%. Theirs is, it's in brackets, of course, but it's about 30% or a third of your income. So the states do such a better job. It's where it belongs. It's where you can make change. I mean, go and try to change tax policy in Washington, D.C. Good luck. Go and try to change, a group, though, can go down to their state legislature. They can change tax policy. It can be done. And all 50 states can do that. That's how the founders intended it. And you'll end up with these, and you see it right now. We have it right now. California, high astronomical taxes. We have 140 people moving here every day from California. That's one of the big reasons they move here, because Arizona's tax rate is so much lower. The business climate is so much more favorable. I mean, it's definitely, the geography. I mean, who would move to the desert, from the oasis of California? Well, it's good tax, it's good policy across the board.
Now, you have been a strong proponent of sovereignty, the states' rights, protection of our, if you'll allow me, identity as a state versus we becoming sucked into a federal agglomeration where the federal government, D.C., runs everything. And you've been a protector of Arizona sovereignty as long as I've known you. Along those lines, my understanding, again, having known you and having worked with a number of members of our legislature and other elected officials, you've been a protector of our border, and yet that's been an uphill battle until the last couple of months. Governor Hobbs of Arizona is not a protector, in my opinion. I'm speaking, you can come back and correct me, but she's not a protector of the state, of state sovereignty, the state border. And I thought she took an oath to protect and preserve our state, our citizens, and all of that. And yet she absolutely refuses to take appropriate steps to protect us from illegals pouring in. Now, you've been a protector of our border. Can you speak into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, it turns out there it was the Border Security Act, which we put on her desk. She vetoed
Yeah.
that, sent it to the ballot, passed overwhelmingly, nearly 2-1. This session, I sponsored the Arizona ICE Act, very measured bill. It's simply the key focus of it was just making sure we hand over criminals, illegal criminals, to ICE. That is really the core component of this. She vetoed that. So we're looking at putting that on the ballot, or we may just focus all of our efforts on getting a new governor that will sign the bill. When it comes to the border, it turns out Congress did not need a border bill, which quite frankly did the opposite. It created more illegal. The bill they had going forward was really less border security. We just needed a new president. I mean, President Trump has effectively sealed the border, the lowest crossings in the history of recording crossings, the safest it's ever been. He has shut off the spigot. So now our effort has shifted from, you know, defense against Biden. The Border Security Act was being able to enforce federal immigration law. The Arizona ICE Act is now a shift. It's making sure we're cooperating with the federal government, because now we have a president who is enforcing the law. We still have a governor, though, as you said, she's very weak on the border. She talks, you can tell she's totally trying to walk the tightrope. She talks about securing the border, but her action, you have to look at her actions. Talk is cheap. What she is really focused on is the humanitarian effort. And Dr. Lyle, you and I both know that when you just focus on the humanitarian effort, you're really just having a magnet. You're drawing more people into our country.
Let me ask you a difficult question. It's not a trick, but
Yeah,
I'm fully aware that I might end up having to come before a committee and defend myself if you get grumpy at me here. Um,
yeah,
it's not a trick, but let me just ask you: you're the president of the Senate. You've been in the House. You've been majority leader. You've been chairman of Judiciary. I mean, you're very well versed on constitutional matters, but also the protection of our state, the sovereignty of our state. We don't seem, well, it's not let me correct myself. I'm not politically correct. It's more than we don't seem. We do not have a governor and we do not have an attorney general that appears to be protecting the rights of our citizens from harm and from invasion. I heard what you just said. Because of President Trump and Tom Homan and others, there's been a great reduction in what's been coming across the border, but it's still coming. Why is it that the governor, the attorney general of Arizona anyway, because we're a border state, how come no one is challenging them on their oath of office? They swore to protect us, and it does not appear to me that they are. Now, I realize that may be a sensitive question,
oh,
but as a citizen, I have the privilege of speaking to the president of the Senate. That's pretty
yeah,
important stuff. You're sitting there. There's many citizens who are trying to reach out and look for leaders that will listen to we the people. You have, I know that
yeah,
we just got done discussing it. But what do we do with executives, a governor, an attorney general that
sure.
does not appear to be living up to their oaths?
Well, a couple things that we have been doing those things. You have a few options. First of all, obviously, we have the next election, and I'm confident we're going to get a new governor and a new attorney general. The next thing, of course, is impeachment and conviction. The House and the Senate have the authority to do that. It's possible we could have impeachment, and that starts in the House. The Senate does conviction, though, and we wouldn't have the votes to do conviction. So as any discussion has been talked about that, probably not fruitful. And not only that, if you do a conviction, do you end up with Adrian Fontes as the new governor instead of Katie Hobbs if you remove her? So that might not be the best way, you know. So we have held her accountable by sending things to the ballot. We've gone around the governor. We've been able to also what we've done with our attorney general is Arizona has a very good law that allows the Senate president to intervene on cases and defend the state when the attorney general does not defend the state, like we have seen. And so, consequently, I am actually in over 55 lawsuits involved because our attorney general is not defending our laws. I can give you a few examples. I won't name all 55 lawsuits that we're in. But first of all, the Save Women's Sports Act. We passed that out, thankfully, before, Governor Hobbs' time, got signed into law by Governor Ducey. It was challenged. And then Chris Mays did not defend that law. If you Google Jane Doe versus Warren Petersen, what you will see is that I'm the lead defendant in that case. We've argued it all the way up to the U.S. It is sitting in front of the U.S. Supreme Court right now for argument. I believe we're going to win that case. President Trump actually invited me out to the White House because of my efforts on this. I got to witness the EO signing for boys and girls sports, and using federal funds to prevent that from happening in our colleges and in our schools. Anyone that's taking federal funding. And we're gonna win that case, but that's a very important case. Spent all day in deposition, and of course been heavily involved with that. Number two, non-citizens voting. Arizona passed a law to clamp down on non-citizens voting. Our attorney general did not defend that. I'm in that lawsuit. That has gone up to the Supreme Court. It's back down to the Ninth Circuit. We're working on that right now. Third one I'll mention is just the Biden land. We've called it the Biden land grab, where he came in and designated 1 million acres as a monument. What he was really doing, of course, was shutting down our ranching and our mining up in northern Arizona. Thank goodness we've been working closely with the Trump administration, and it sounds like they will be able to just reverse that on their own. We don't know that court action will be needed for that now, so we're going through that right now. But that's an example. Three cases, and there's 55. I mean, just a few days ago, we just entered into. We're working with Idaho on voter ID laws, and so these are all areas where we're making a huge difference, where we have an absence on the ninth floor, and where we have an AG who is not defending our laws.
Wow, thank you. Maybe you'll come back and we can explore that a little bit more. I did not know that. That's very exciting. And thank you on behalf of citizens for looking after us. I do not believe we have a governor and attorney general that's looking after our welfare. And I did not know the president of the Senate had the authority to move ahead in the capacity you're just saying. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
As you remember, I was fortunate to coordinate both joint legislative hearings on election fraud. The one in Phoenix where Mayor Giuliani came, and it was an all-day, 10-hour day of testimony. And then about a year later, not quite, in Oro Valley, where we brought further evidence, not opinion, of theory. We demonstrated, I believe, Senator Fincham and Senator Borelli were co-chairs of that. We believe, and I think I can speak for them, we presented solid evidence, not hypotheses, theories of election fraud in Arizona, both for 2020 and 2022. Do you believe that our electoral process in Arizona is a little bit more solid than it was and a little bit more honest, integrous?
Yeah, I will tell you that due to the efforts of a lot of volunteers, attorneys, the party, interest groups, in 2024, we did a really good job of having observers everywhere. We had attorneys everywhere. The slightest, if anything was ever seen, litigation would be threatened. If there was something suspicious seen, people would ask questions. People were all watching the videos that were on, watching the votes and the tabulating. And so, and if you look at the results, and I was heavily involved with the Victory Fund, making sure we held the legislature. We actually expanded. We ended up expanding seats. Trump won by 5.5 points. We swept the Corporation Commission. We won our swing congressional district. We won every single race in Arizona. except for one or two. And so we did very, very well in 2024. Since then, we have added 100,000 voters to the rolls. And so I feel really good about 2026 as we're vigilant and strong. And then, of course, um, we get a governor, a good governor in there, good AG in there. We lock up some really good laws to even further strengthen our elections. We're going to be in really, really good shape. The legislature is going to put some stuff on the ballot this cycle. So we will send some election integrity issues to the ballot. You may know, I mean, you probably remember I signed the subpoenas originally for the audit, and of course had um, you know judges not too happy with me through that. With some nice threats during that period. But I do believe that we things were much better in 24 because we were so vigilant
Yeah.
and people were so engaged. And I do think in 2026, I will just tell you, as a as an AG, what I would do first thing, prevention is better than prosecution, right? It's better not to prosecute a crime. It's better to not have the crime, not have to prosecute. It's better to, deterrence is such a critical part of law enforcement. As AG, I would immediately come in and say, I would send a letter to all the recorders, remind them I enforce Title 16, tell them to keep all their records. They know what that means. And also remind them, especially keep the cast vote record. Make sure you have that. And so they're going to know that they're going to be looked at. When people know they're going to be looked at, they're a lot more careful. It was interesting. I just heard Elon Musk this morning. They said all they did, the Treasury was putting out all these payments to the Department of Ed. I think it was Department of Ed. And they said, all we need you to do is upload an invoice or a receipt of what you bought or a contract or something, and we'll issue the payment. They stopped getting the request. And they just stopped. And nobody. And so, when people know you're watching them, when
Right.
it really makes sure. And we really need that. And we can have that if people know they have an attorney general who is extremely strong on election integrity. We're going to have election integrity. Now, if they need to prosecute, let's say became the attorney general and needed to prosecute, I will do that. But it's much better to prevent and deter with, of course, the threat of prosecution.
Now, I'm not prepared to discuss this, but rumor has it that you're looking at running for attorney general. Am I hearing correctly from my Circle K crowd and the people I hang out with?
Yeah, I filed the statement of interest, so it's
Okay.
technically you're not running until you've turned in all your nominations petitions. But yes, that is the plan. So that's a path that we're on.
So the people that I count on at Circle K who tell me stuff, they're doing okay right now.
Yeah, those are true.
Do you have, Senator, do you have a website that people can go to that we'll post, and that way they learn a little bit more about you and your plans?
Yeah, so I'm online. You can, if you Google my name, it'll be there. That's easy if you can't remember. But if you just search for Vote Warren Petersen, that's a website. There's also petersenag.com. That's a website as well where they can learn more information about what I've done.
Let me give you a minute to collect your thoughts, because I'd like you to give us any closing thoughts you might have. So let me give you a minute to think about that. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Warren Petersen has been my guest. He's the president of the Arizona State Senate. I'm very blessed and fortunate that on Arizona Today, I get to interview and have a conversation with national folks, as you've known, and state folks, as in this case. And somebody in North Carolina might be thinking, well, why should I listen to Arizona Today with the Senate president on, the Senate president of Arizona? You can click it off. That's fine. But I think this gentleman is already discussing some things that are impacting not just Arizona, but other states as they begin to copy Arizona. Arizona's been in the forefront for several years now, leading the charge in a number of areas. And I believe this gentleman has been a key figure in doing that. And I asked if he would come on. He's very busy as president of the Senate, as you can imagine. And the fact that he is contemplating running for Attorney General of Arizona also made it very important to begin to introduce him to the Arizona folks and for people to learn a little bit more about what's his thinking, what are his priorities, what's he made of. That we should invest in a gentleman like this. I think, this is me speaking, we have been not represented well as our governor and the attorney general in Arizona, and it's created some very, very serious problems. And I believe now what we the people are looking for are some representatives, be it a governor, attorney general, secretary of state, Senate president, who will stand up for their oath of office and do what is not popular, but what is critical to maintain the sovereignty of our state and the protection of our citizens. And this gentleman has been doing that since I've met him. There were a couple of things that I did not know, but he has been doing that since he's been in the legislature since 2012. And so I wanted the senator to come on and begin to share what he believes, what he sees are the issues. So thank you in North Carolina for tuning in and remaining on, and other states that I get emails from. And I hope you'll find this of interest. Now, Senator, how about a closing thought that you might have, whether I've asked the question or not?
Yeah, no, I would just say, the Arizona legislature is what has really, when we were in our darkest hour here, it was what has prevented Arizona from turning into California. We've been the red wall. So, I think all of our listeners across the state know legislators. Please thank them. A legislature's not an easy job. It can be really hard to build a consensus. You've got so many people with different interests. But what we have been able to do is create these good policies that have attracted so many people. It's why we are constantly one of the fastest growing states in the nation. And, as long as we're in control, as long as the Republicans have the majority, I believe you will continue to get really good policy here, which is, what you want, so that Arizona is a great place for you to work. It's a great place to raise your family. It's a great place to play and have fun as well. So anyways, just, the legislature is here to serve you. And we'll keep working diligently and hard to deliver really good laws and policies for you.
Thank you. My guest has been Senator Warren Petersen, president of the Arizona State Senate. And I hope you've learned some things and have gotten a little bit of taste of what this gentleman stands for. I'm asked him to come back a good couple of times because there's some other areas that we want to explore and open those curtains. And he's been on the forefront of a number of issues. So prayerfully, you've learned something this time, and over the next couple of visits, you'll learn that much more from Senator Petersen. Thank you so much, Senator, again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I'm Lyle Rapakian. That's how I see things from Arizona today.